a partidei. Delgado acolo este. Va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
Ready, Duncan?
Here we go then, mate.
Nicole Kidman, what are you doing here?
Hello, I thought I'd just sit like a
We have to go before we cut away. Bye.
Yes, bye.
Bye, Nicole.
Jingle bells, jingle bells. Batman smells. Robin laid an egg. Welcome back to Val Verde Broadcasting. Happy sort of not Christmas maybe. If it's that time of year, then excellent. If it's not, who cares? Festivities and such like. I hope you're all warming your balls by the fire with an eggnog, or indeed your lady genitals. I'm here with Richard Jackson today, as per usual, to talk about X-Men 3 because why not? X-Men 3, The Last Stand. Although, as we came to realise, it wasn't the last stand at all. It was one of many stands, some of which fell over.
It's ever-decreasing stance.
Yes. Yes. So, directed by, at last minute, Brett Ratner. Mm-hmm. He of grand success in the arena of
disappointment and
filmmaking. I don't know. I mean, he's someone. I think for me, I mean, I know, it's like Bruce Forsyth. Personal. What's the word?
Personal tastes, personal preferences.
Controversy aside, because I know there's been Me Too. That obviously, is what it is. But in terms of his films, like he's made some good. I think I still stand up for Red Dragon as being actually quite a good film.
Interesting.
It's obviously a retelling of Manhunter, but it's kind of I think it's pretty good. But he sort of I think started out really kind of as a director for hire. I think that was kind of
he did kind of comedy with Martin Lawrence, didn't he? And I think that was his thing was in comedies. I think his signature series is the Rush Hour series.
Yeah.
Which is a strange thing that I guess they have to do an incantation and move a rock to bring Chris Tucker out of the mountain that he's bonded to by spirit or whatever, because that's all he's done for the last 2 decades of Rush Hour films.
Yeah.
But there were those. I mean, he just seemed like such a kind of gun for hire, and this is the epitome of that because Matthew Vaughn was going to do it.
Yes.
And then he went, and there are some hangovers of that left within the film.
Yep.
Most notably the Juggernaut, but it just felt so perfunctory, just kind of like, you'll do. It's absolutely like, you'll do, he's fine, that'll do.
Well, I mean, and presumably their back was up against the wall. So, I mean, I'm sure it didn't shake down quite like this, but I mean, the idea was Bryan Singer was supposed to do it, and then he got Superman Returns and jumped ship to do that.
He took Scott Marsden with him.
He took Scott Marsden with him. The Matt Vaughn of it all, I gather, that's what hence Vinnie Jones's Juggernaut is still a part of it because...
And he ended up doing First Class anyway.
Yeah, well,
vastly superior film.
Like Jason Fleming, for example, was also, who ultimately ended up in that, was going to be on board, and then basically I think the people the kind of Lock, Stock alumni who left because Matt Vaughn was leaving, but then Vinnie Jones was left because all his prosthetics had already been done, so it was like he couldn't get out without costing them a lot of money or whatever. I believe something like that. So it suffers. I mean, it does suffer. It's sort of. I think the problem is it's such a jarring change, sort of tonally in a lot of ways, but it's got the veneer of the X-Men films because it's kind of having the first two having kind of helmed by the same guy and having very kind of thematically and all that stuff being fairly consistent. This then becomes kind of. It's like the thematics are there, but they're kind of seen through the prism of Rush Hour guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, obviously there's the gay allegory that is throughout the first two, but it's being kind of, it's not in your face, but it's kind of like, it's a nice sort of undercurrent of like, not fitting in, all that.
I think it's there just because it's in the script. I don't think there's any kind of, it's not a film that I would accuse of having any kind of duality of meaning or visual metaphor. No. It's just kind of there. I'm not saying anyone was fighting against it. I'm just saying like it's there because it's in the written word more than anything else.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think it's always there as an undercurrent with X-Men.
Of course, massively.
You know what I mean?
Like the backbone of that, yeah.
And argue, made by a guy who, well, I don't want to speak for Bryan Singer, but
not a good time to speak for Bryan Singer.
Really isn't.
Not even his mum wants to speak for Bryan Singer right now.
And I don't want to get in any hot water, but potentially it was about that, made by someone who is in that, who is gay and that blah blah blah, and obviously like Ian McKellen and all those kind of guys. It had that there if you wanted to look for it. It's great. It's always part of X-Men. Like the mum in the second one goes, "Have you tried not being a mutant?"
Yeah, exactly. And then it goes, that's what Stanley.
And don't get me wrong, it's about
with it.
Yeah,
but it's civil rights allegory, clearly.
Yeah, and that, exactly. Absolutely.
In this film, it's there because it's like it takes place in San Francisco.
But it just doesn't have the weight for some reason.
Well, no, that's what I mean.
One,
I think it's baked into it, but in terms of its filmmaking, it's just kind of like the whole of X-Men 3 to me, in a phrase, is, I guess we better get on with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? The whole thing just kind of marches through. And it's kind of, I don't particularly, there's nothing particularly interesting visually with it. It's kind of like, locked off shot, wide, locked off shot, wide, tracking shot. Like there's no kind of fun filmmaking in it. I don't particularly like the first X-Men films, which I'm on record as saying, and I think the net gain overall, it's negative equity for me overall with that series. There's a few, I really like Logan, I really like First Class, there's a few kind of peaks. These first three films, I mean, at the time when there were just three, the first two looked like masterpieces, but the world has moved on, and the third one in particular just made the first two look good.
Yes, I mean, I think the first one, the biggest criticism you can have of it now, and I think even at the time, is certain elements of it are very televisual. But for some reason, I've always liked that film. I don't know why. I've always really enjoyed it. We did a whole episode on it. Yeah.
But a lot of people do. There's a lot of love for those movies. I don't hold them. I know something I've noticed is that X-Men, in particular, I think it captures a load of people's hearts when they're teenagers, and I'm talking all the way back to its inception. People really fall in love with X-Men, and then they never lose that, which is really nice because it's not my cup of tea. I liked the cartoony stuff when I was a kid, and I knew people that were really into it. I also think X-Men really strongly crosses gender divides as well, which is really nice in the world of superhero comics because it's a thing that's considered mostly male, and there are loads of female fans of superhero stuff. But X-Men in particular seems to be a 50-50 split between men and women, or possibly more. Yeah. Like it seems to have this really involved female following, which is really nice because there's a kind of shitty male exclusivity to a lot of superhero comics. Yeah. Or a perceived one. It's not really real, it's just enforced by pricks on the internet.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, I can understand why, it was initially as a genre loosely aimed at boys. But then as it's evolved and as it's gotten more sophisticated, I think, and certainly X-Men came out at a time when it was, I gather, kind of getting more into that. It wasn't just male dominated, I don't think. So
it's the swinging 60s.
It was.
The Marvel stuff really kicked into gear in the 60s, whereas DC had its head start and got big in the kind of 40s and 30s.
Yeah. What will happen next week? That sort of thing. Yeah. So it does, and I think the films. See, I don't know because I wouldn't have any metrics for this, but I gather that the films managed to achieve that as well, which is potentially why they were so successful. In that, they really did kind of attract more of a female audience than perhaps you would expect. It's interesting. I mean, it's funny. These films, I mean, they are of an era. It was kind of coming out of the you can't do superheroes as superheroes, so it's black leather costumes, it's all this sort of stuff. The fact that this series is now carried on to pretty much present day, and it's still technically that world, yet no one really wears costumes anymore, and it's like all the prequel stuff, they maybe put the yellow ones on for a minute and then it's done.
Well, then I haven't seen the newest, or we should say the last X-Men film.
Dark
Phoenix. But the end of X-Men, the one before X-Men Apocalypse, they're all wearing the kind of classic-ish costumes. There's a bit more. There's a lot more colour within them.
Mystique is our leader now. What? Credits. It's like what? Like where?
That fucking movie. Oh god, I really like Future Past as well.
Yeah. That is probably, I think, as now we finally got to the end of it all. I would say Days of Future Past is probably my favourite one.
Yeah, I really dug it. I still do. It's got cool time travel stuff, and to a degree I can get on. But what frustrated me about these films forever was the kind of. If you don't care about your continuity, why should I? And then nothing really means anything. But by the time Future Past rolled around, it's kind of like, I like time travel stuff. Future Past is one of the storylines I like from X-Men, because I wasn't the hugest fan of those. And it did a cool time travel story, and it all made sense. It all kind of fit together in as much as any time travel story ever fits together.
Yeah.
And it carried over that first class cast. It's annoying because it kills off a bunch of the first class cast and sort of goes like, no, Bryan Singer's back.
Yeah.
I think Mike Stoklasa referred to Bryan Singer as the deadbeat dad of the X-Men franchise. Which is totally right, because he was kind of like, I'm off. And then when it was big again, he's like, yep,
he had an affair with Superman and then kind of came back. Yeah.
And then, Vaughn buggered off to do Kick-Ass and Kingsman and stuff, which are very... Kick-Ass, for obvious reasons, superhero stuff, but Kingsman is essentially a superhero story.
Yeah, especially the second one.
They've basically got magic powers, haven't they?
Yeah.
But it's Matrix super spy shit, so whatever.
Yeah. It's fine. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, it's great. These are things that I'm happy exist. Whether I find them edifying or not is really irrelevant. It's sort of like they're fun, I think that's been the funny thing about how it's gone. I think arguably when it let go of itself, I think something like Days of Future Past was a balls to the wall. Fuck it, we've got nothing to lose. Let's just literally go crazy with this, and have our cake and eat it too by having literally both the first class lot and the original cast.
I think that was its big pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As well, that we're gonna, and it's the swan song really for the OG cast.
Magneto died. I mean, a lot of them die in it. You sort of see how they all kind of.
Does Magneto die?
Yeah.
No, but the past they get a positive future that gets
anyway.
redone. So.
He's a frustrating character to me. Ian McKellen's Magneto. Constantly, his arc is he's actually good. And even through the first class, even Fassbender's stuff as well, as it's like his arc is like he's angry. I'm angry. And then, all right, I understand now. Because I effectively shot you in the spine.
He does that in every film.
And everyone by the start of the next one, he's like, "Rrr." And it's the same with that. It's like, I'm pissed off now. All right, Charles, let's be frank.
That's Eddie Izzard.
Hello, Magneto, and then they mean to cure us, but. That's a line. That's something from X-Men 3. That was the abiding. I remember all the tropes. They mean to cure us.
Well, that's the thing.
We are the cure.
The kind of insidious, awful concept of curing gay people.
Well, yeah, because this is from a story in the comics, wasn't it? About which had the thing where it was like the big.
It may have been like a Grant Morrison or a Joss Whedon storyline. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not really an X-Men fan.
Well, I mean, at least we need to talk about was it gay conversion therapy? That's
the obvious thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's sort of like I said, it's baked into the script. I don't really see that in the storytelling of the film cinematically, but.
But that's the thing, isn't it? This just feels like there's that 1 degree gone. That this is something that is quite, you've got Angel's character arc is again, it's not necessarily about being gay, it's about any kind of growing up and awakening.
Suppress yourself.
Yeah.
Like he literally has to mutilate himself.
Yeah. That's quite a horrific.
Or strap the, because in trans men, there's a thing of kind of binding your breasts down, and the thing is binding his wings in, and it's, and they don't, and then he literally is allowed to spread his wings and turn into Peter Bill from EastEnders by the time Apocalypse comes around. But anyway, I mean, that stuff's all in there and that's great, but it's just also perfunctory in its filmmaking because, as I said at the beginning, it's just like, we've got a script, we've got the money, we've got the cast. Could you just film this for us, please?
Yeah.
Because there's one thing I've brought up a bunch of times, which I haven't let go, because I saw this in the cinema in Southampton when I lived in Southampton years ago. One thing I've never let go is that when they go to the Golden Gate Bridge and the whole Magneto lifts the bridge thing, there's a day to night transition that takes about 20 seconds, and it's like they're on one side of the bridge, and there's no other indication within its filmmaking, and I can't stress this enough. One of the key things you do as a filmmaker is dealing with the transition of time, and there is no other hints that time has passed, and it's suddenly nighttime because it's cheaper to shoot that battle. There's a battle, and it's cheaper to shoot it at night, and it just points so much that people complain, I think, often quite arbitrarily about being dragged out of the film. It's kind of like, well, he had a moustache, that dragged him out of the film. It's just like, come on. But when you're literally subverting the rules of time like that, because it's going to be cheaper to shoot the next bit, because someone at Fox Coast wanted, fuck it, make it dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird. There was a spate of that kind of stuff going on as well. Like it's just bizarre, like the way it goes, bap, and it's kind of like, did Magneto drop the bridge there and stand there and be like, let's no. Wait for Nightfall. I mean, what was? I'm trying to think of other examples of it, but there were lots of examples.
There are a few, and there are films. I will fully admit, and I can't think off the top of my head, but there are films we've definitely talked about where that's done, and I kind of give it a pass. But this is it's just on top of so much other cynical shit that when that happens, it's kind of like sometimes someone's done it out of necessity, or so they haven't been able to resolve it in a story, and at least there's usually something else that might kind of explain it. There's room for a cut.
Yeah.
But in that film, it's just kind of like, hold on, because the whole build-up there is based around a sense of urgency, and exactly like you say, if Magneto's going, okay, everybody, hold on a minute, like, it's just like, what? They just torn apart a bridge, and he's standing there.
I think the thing that I understand it in terms of like when you've got a big set piece coming up, it's very hard to marshal the beginning of that, especially on a thing where in all likelihood you are just shooting everything and then putting it together in the edit, to then go, okay, we need some of this to take place at dusk. You know, the button on this scene has to be that the sun's going down. It's very hard to make that transition. Terminator 3 is an example. You remember we were talking about that the other day, like when they escape in the truck or in the vet thing, suddenly it's like morning when they're like driving. It's like
the roads are full and stuff.
Yeah. It's just like what?
Another shit 3 that came out in the early 2000s.
3 is the magic number, or not, as the case may be. Yeah, so it is things like that do speak to a slightly cheap, well, not cheaper, but just not as well put together. You know, and don't get me wrong, if you were just suddenly dropped into a thing and go, right, marshal that, please, and make a good film, because and by the way, there's like hundreds of, or however many $1 million.
Wasn't this incredibly expensive as well at the time?
Very possibly.
Because I remember Terminator 3, and I don't want to conflate the two, but I'm pretty sure X-Men 3 was another movie that was because of the cast's inflated salaries and because of all the effect stuff. I'm pretty sure this may have been the next most expensive film ever after Terminator 3 or something like that. I think it was, and probably because of having to do stuff again. But I'm pretty sure this cost an obscene amount of money.
It came.
And it looks cheap.
When did it come out? 2004 or 5?
Yeah, 5.
5. Yeah, see, and that's not a good year. I mean, you got Batman Begins. You know, you were right in that the big ones were being reinvented because next year was Superman Returns, and that's say what you will about that film, but it's kind of like there was this real kind of push to get superheroes onto the next plane, and I do think that the first 3 X-Men films really do play like episodes in a sort of TV show. Really, they're not. And that sounds like I'm really damning.
They're like season premiere feature-length pilots, aren't they?
Kind of
or like season finales.
I mean, I say that as someone who's largely reverential for them. I do like them. My frustration, I suppose, with it all has been that you've had these nuggets of gold in them, like Hugh Jackman, like Patrick Stewart, like Ian McKellen, like all these amazing people. And then, like when First Class came out, you got friggin' McAvoy and Fassbender, 2 of the best actors we've got working together. You know, you attracted these awesome casts, and they do have these great moments to shine. And it's been one of these franchises. I hate that word, but it's been one of these franchises that I've been like, oh come on, all right, do another. Yeah, I do want to see what happens. And then Logan was a wonderful like button on the end, but it's like. I really have for the last. This has been running now for what?
20 years.
20 years, pretty much. And it's kind of like, I want to see a new reinvention of what I do want a reboot of X-Men.
It's coming.
Yeah.
They'll fold it into Marvel in the next couple of years. I think that's the plan. Which, I'd be really interested to see that.
Yeah.
A lot of the toys have now been played with and broken, though, unfortunately.
Yes.
And they'll have to sort of, in the way they've had to reconfigure Spider-Man a bit, because you can only do the same stuff. I mean, I think they should have just gone straight with Miles Morales in the MCU, because we've seen Peter Parker 90 times. But then Miles Morales got his animated film, and it was really cool, so.
That's true.
But, stuff like that. I mean, there are so many moments. Because you really have to credit the X-Men films for getting us where we are now. Because releasing an X-Men film in 1999 was just like, well, what the fuck? They wouldn't even get a Spider-Man film off the ground in 1999. You know what I mean? The X-Men film. And off the back of Blade as well. And they're really important in terms of where we are today. But unfortunately, they weren't able to keep up despite being the trailblazer. And so many times when you're watching an X-Men film, because there are 1, 2, 3... 1, 2, 3,
7 or 8.
Wolverine, First Class, Future
effectively
Past,
2 trilogies.
Wolverine again, Apocalypse, Wolverine again.
There's 9 because there's 2 trilogies effectively, and then there's 3. There's a trilogy of Wolverine films.
I know, but there's 4 First Class movies. There's 10.
Are there?
Yeah, First Class.
Yeah, God, there are, aren't they? Dark
10 movies. 10 movies.
Jeez.
And watching them at so many points during that, I feel like it's a cinematic equivalent of Ralph Wiggum eating his glue. You know what I mean? Like X-Men Origins Wolverine, fucking hell. And X-Men 3, fucking hell. Yeah. And then Apocalypse, fucking hell. I haven't seen Dark Phoenix, but it looks to be fucking hell.
Yeah, well, these are a product of Fox needing to keep rights, right? So that explains the kind of slightly sausage factory.
Have it in perpetuity and sort of going. I'm not sure how that really works, because it's like, well, they weren't doing it in the 90s, were they? So I don't quite understand. Well, I wonder, maybe there was something to do with the commencement of making films. I don't know what that was, but and you know, the funny thing is they were a big holdout for ages, and it wasn't that long ago that was in the debate of like, well, if only Marvel had XMen, and it's sort of like, no, Marvel have all things, or Disney, I suppose, is a broader thing. Yeah. I mean, this film in particular. As I've said a bunch of times, it's just so kind of insubstantial, and I tell you, it jumps between being insubstantial and embarrassing, because there's stuff like that I'm the Juggernaut or whatever. Yeah,
see, all that stuff. I mean, I wonder with Vinnie Jones in that situation, was he literally like playing up to it?
We know that's a meme. I'm the Juggernaut bitch, and they folded it into the script.
Yeah,
and I've said this before. He looks like if you made a sort of quadrupedal personified erect penis. Like if it was a personification of priapism, it would look like that Juggernaut.
Weirdly, see, the Juggernaut is one of a literal translation of a character to the screen, and it's like it doesn't work. But having decried the black costumes and stuff, it's like that is
because they do a better job in Deadpool 2 of Juggernaut. They do a much better job. Have you not seen it? Oh, he's even got the proper dome head and stuff, and it's Ryan Reynolds' voice, but they kept that a secret. But yeah, they do a much how they did like a literal Colossus in Deadpool 1. Mm-hmm. They do Colossus versus Juggernaut in Deadpool 2.
Oh, wow.
It's really cool. Yeah. They really kind of get it. I will say, for example, I can't think of a better cut. Keeping in mind this is middle-aged Beast, not young Beast, because we've got Nicholas Hoult now.
Right.
I can't think of anyone better than Kelsey Grammer to play Beast. Particularly based, mainly Mike's pictures in the animated version, but you know the kind of bookish kind of. Beast is like a hairy Fraser Crane, so they just like get.
I know it wasn't him, but in my mind he did the voice for the cartoon as well. Like I know he did.
It's kind of like Lorenzo Music and Garfield. It's like, you know, it sounds like it's Bill Murray.
Mandela effect, kind of. Yeah, it's that sort of weird thing. But he perfect choice for it, and especially in this story, to bring it back to X-Men 3.
Yes, there's not been much talk of X-Men 3. There's good reason.
Yeah. But to bring it back to this story, he's a more sort of isn't he a senator or a congressman or something?
He's in government, and he's kind of like the first openly mutant, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And there was that tie back, because the first film obviously is about Senator Kelly he's kind of like a radical. I think, you know, it's in this film as well, of course, and the kind of tension in X-Men is kind of trying to unite the radicalized and then the kind of more public-facing factions of a civil rights movement. And you know, the Brotherhood of Mutants, in the comic they were called the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which is very bad branding. Or BOEM for short. They are, you know, they're the kind of radicalized nutbags that just want to kill people and take supremacy, whereas the X-Men are the kind of the more, they want to integrate society and be more civilized.
They're the liberals, kind of, I guess.
Let's do that.
No, sorry, I didn't mean it.
Just the diarrhea tsunami.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I'm not trying to say that.
I was skirting around assigning anybody anything. But, you know, and that's the kind of thing here, and Kelsey Grammer is the kind of, he's integrated with the politics and stuff, and he's kind of the put upon, you know, which is like having the first kind of black politicians in America and whatever. And obviously the main thing here is civil rights in the kind of LBGTQA. I wish I knew the whole thing. I'm really sorry about that, but you know, that's the allegory in X-Men.
Yeah. Because a thing that I can't remember, where is it brought up? I'm sure somewhere popular it's been brought up about, and I'm guessing, I'm trying to think if it's been done in, and obviously not having seen the last film, I don't know, but there's that thing about, there's a certain element of authoritarianism in the X-Men in that they fly around in a big gunship.
They're a extra governmental paramilitary organisation that just turn up in a big fucking plane. It's like, I mean, that's the thing with any superhero stuff. There's a lot of like, wait, who the fuck are you people? Sort of turn up, and you can say that about the X-Men as well. They just come out of nowhere in their private plane and just start blowing stuff up with their laser vision.
I think that was always the thing that they struggled with, is just like, as a force, there's such a sort of, like, what do you come up with for them to, like, what's their day-to-day, like... Well, that's the thing. They can't be saving cats out of trees and stuff. The superheroing of it it's kind of odd, isn't it? Because there's a lot more of, like, the Avengers turn up because
I know, buildings on fire, or like a bunch of armed nutters have done a thing, or Superman. Whereas X-Men, it's sort of like, we all have to get in our plane to go to something politically relevant.
Yeah.
or you know, I mean, 'cause I think the implication is they do general day after day superhero.
Yeah.
I find them really, I've always found them really hard to square with the rest of the Marvel universe, because of course they cross over constantly because comics are being comics, Marvel is Marvel.
Yeah.
There's always this kind of thing of like the X-Men are just off in upstate New York and the entire planet has mutants, but the rest of the Marvel stuff just doesn't really talk about it so much. They definitely do, and you can put it up, but there's no kind of like, aren't people saying like, is Peter Parker a mutant? Or like, is Daredevil, because the public don't know, so why aren't they going like, well, he must be a mutant?
Yeah.
You know, like fucking Tony Stark having a green baby with Pepper Potts, you know, that doesn't, the two things don't seem to touch. I know they do in the broad comic sphere, but like, it always felt like
a different
they
universe.
were just off.
I know what you mean.
The whole civil rights struggle, and by association, the future of the entire Marvel universe is that the mutants are hunted down and put into camps and everything's controlled by giant purple robots.
Yeah.
And that's
where are
the
the
future
Avengers
of
on this? You know, it's like, what does the Hulk think about
someone will have written the comic to square that since, I'm sure.
There's lots of crossovers. Like the individual characters would do, like Hulk and
or if there's a big crisis, like it's like the X-Men are here, you know, to help. But it's always kind of like the broader implications of the X-Men are kind of universe breaking. Right. You know, because like you have Wolverine versus Hulk and stuff, but you're basically saying A, you've shown the dystopian future in the X-Men. And B, everybody carries the ability to sort of reproduce with the mutant gene, which is kind of forgotten about when it's needed. You know, it doesn't quite gel with the rest of everything else.
Yeah, and it does sort of imply that as time goes on, more and more mutants should be born. So therefore, like, what are we going to become?
It's supposedly the next phase of human evolution.
Yeah.
Which, you know, don't want to be that guy. Human evolution tends to be fairly uniform. It's not good. That's why we don't have like every other person has tentacles for a head. Or, you know what I mean? Like, we all evolve from apes as a straight line.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I can control the weather. You can do what?
Like, I just really wanted to for generations.
I can control the weather because of genetics. What?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah, that really, it does speak to an era of like, it was back when like gamma radiation would do everything, you know. It was
radiation genetics were new, so they could just do whatever.
If you were bitten by a radioactive thing, it made you that.
Instead of you getting cancer and dying.
Yeah. If you reduced a mutant. I mean, mutant implies that as well. Like, if you've mutated, that means something has to have caused the mutation, right? So it's kind of like,
well, I suppose there's mutation on the reproductive level as well.
I suppose so.
But it's just I just love how random like the next phase of evolution is. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, there's no like. Sometimes you'll have a twin who has the same power, but it's just like, wow, human evolution is a mess, and it's also magic.
Very quickly, because we've got to wrap up here. But in terms of X-Men 3. The newer cast, which people came over from the other films, but in terms of, obviously we talked about Kelsey Grammer, Bill Duke, as Bolivar Trask, all the sort of newer baddie mutants.
Also the voice of Ali Ermey, very briefly.
As
when they're arming up, he's like, "Get all your guns from the place and go to the thing," and that's it. It's really weird.
Yeah. Dewberry, what's his name? Steelman, Colossus, Columbus, Nicholas Winding Refn. I don't know. What's his name?
Colossus was in all
Colossus.
three. Do they change him to
Is he in the first one? I don't think he was in the first one. I think he's in the second
one, definitely.
Okay, yes, forgive me.
I just don't find any of them particularly memorable.
No, well, there's all there did feel there was an element of the kind of like, oh, it's the new mutant of the day kind of thing. Where there's like the guy what can throw poos out of his hand.
Spiky Boy and Multiple Man,
and the hedgehoggy dude, and you know, all these sort of like, oh, I can do whatever, and that. I mean, I'm assuming they are from the comics. But
I believe so, yeah. But they're just thrown in as Easter eggs, essentially.
And he literally says at one point, "That's why the pawns go first," or whatever. And it's because there's suddenly this.
That's why we send the lesser characters from the comics.
Uncredited.
Uncredited team, go!
Because I mean, and that's the big disappointment at the end is obviously, there's supposed to be this big giant battle, and it doesn't really feel that. There's a lot of wires. There's a lot of stuff, not just things flying at each other. Yeah, it's like really, and then it ultimately ends in him having to kill Famke Janssen. What is ripping his clothes off, but not his pants.
Oh God, don't even get started with the fucking Phoenix shit.
Yeah, well, God, yeah, that's something we haven't really even talked about. But that's obviously a thing they've had a boner for a lot, and then never really managed to get it to work, have they?
Done it twice now.
Yeah. Because I guess they keep messing with it, instead of making it space mutants or whatever. Anyway, there we go.
Time to wrap up.
That's time to wrap up. Thank you all for listening to our inane drivel. about X-Men 3, The Last Stand that twasn't. Go on, mime The Last Stand.
Oh, The Last Stand. Wait. Oh, there's none left! Oh, that's not a mime, is it? No.
As we've said in previous things, we're not really bothering to tell you where we are social media wise, but it is all down in the description below. If you have any comments or anything you'd like to talk about, films that transition from day to night in the blink of an eye, please put them down in the comments from below, because we were stupid and didn't really think of any. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thanks so much. Okay, bye now. Bye.
Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Val Verde Shop.